Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we are going to conduct a presentation regarding introduction to law in Malaysia. So this is our group members. The first one is NORASMIZA Binti Muhammad Zain. The second one is NURUL FARISHA Binti AZAM. Next is ILYANI Binti SUHAIMI. Next, beside me is NURIN Binti Muhammad TARMIZI. And lastly, I am Afiqah Binti Muhammad Kamil. Let's start our presentation.
Malaysia legal history. Malaysia's legal history has been determined a long years ago. All problems that occur in era are determined according to the legal system in that period. According to the some local historical, the history of Malaysian law has been formulated based on the three major periods of the era to current Malaysian system. Among them, the three major periods of the era that influence the legal system in Malaysia, such as first is Malacca Sultanate era. According to the history, the founder of the Malacca Sultanate was Parameswara, or known as Megat Iskandar Shah, who was the first ruler in era of the Malacca Sultanate. After the Parameswara died, the system of government was continued in the administration of the Malacca Sultanate, such as Sultan Muzaffar Shah, Sultan Mansur Shah, and Bendahara Tun Perak. As the era of the Malacca Sultanate expanded, then there was a system of administration and justice was introduced to government at the time. Through this system, the Sultanate leader the government and is assisted by the Bendahara, Temenggung, Laksamana, and Shah Bandar. Undang-Undang Laut Melaka was drafted by numerous well-known Melaka captain and authorized by Sultan Mahmud Shah as a law that applied at sea and aboard boats. Then, the influence of these two laws can be seen in the law in several other Malay states, namely the Pahang Law 1596, the Kedah Law 1905, and Johor Law, and the 1999 Perak Law 1978. Second is the spread of Islam era. The rapid spread and development of Islam is associated with the era of the Malay Sultanate of Malacca because it was the first administrations in the Malay world. According to history, the developments and spread of Islam in the Malay world was driven by the Malacca Sultanate government at the time, which has a strong administrations and politics. Therefore, the influence of Islam in Malay world is growing in terms of Islamic-based belief, legislation to govern Islamic, more to the Sharia-oriented countries such as Hukum Kanun Aceh and Undang-Undang Laut Melaka, and quality education lead to the literacy revolution. Third is British colonization era. Alright, the Supreme Court of the Strait Settlement was founded by this ordinance, thereby dissolving the courts of judicature of Penang, Singapore, and Malacca, and all of which has been established under the Third Charter of Justice. Alright, between 1874 and 1887, each of the four states come under British protection when their ruler agreed to accept British residents whose advice was followed on all matters except those affecting Malay religions and customs in exchange for British recognition of their claim as ruler of the respective Malay states. Alright, like to position prevailing in the federal Malay states, the advice of British advisor had to be sought and acted upon by the ruler of the unfederated Malay states on matters others that those affecting Malay religion and custom.
Malaysian law is divided into three categories, which is written law, unwritten law, and Shariah law. The most important sources of law in Malaysian legal system is written law, which include the federal constitutions, state constitutions, legislation, and subsidiary legislation. The federal constitution is a written constitution that is followed by 13 states. In other words, written law refers to the law expressed in federal constitutions, which is Malaysian supreme law, which enforces the individual's fundamental and basic rights. Unwritten law is another source of Malaysian legal system law. Unwritten law is simply that portion of Malaysian law which is not being enacted by Parliament or the state assemblies, and which is not found in the written federal and state constitutions. This category of law comes from cases decided by the court or the local custom, which is otherwise known as common law. The unwritten law mainly consists of the English law, judicial decision, and custom law. The third source is Shariah law, which is solely relevant to Muslim and is governed by a separate judicial system, which is the Shariah court. The Shariah court is the court that enforces Islamic law in marriage, divorce, and family problems. It is found on the Quran and Hadith, as well as fatwa and ijma ulama. According to federal constitution, the state have the authority to enforce Muslim law, or we call as Shariah law. The state legislature has power over the constitutions, organization, and process of the Shariah court, and it is also permitted to enact Islamic legislation pertaining to Muslims. Dual justice system. Let me explain in detail regarding this term. Islamic or Shariah law is the one of the most controversial legal system in existence. Sharia has a wider reach than we think it is, even present in some Western liberal democracies such as UK. Malaysia is often described to have a dual legal system implementing both Shariah law and secular civil law. Shariah law is referred to Islamic law, and it is known as Shariah in Malaysia. The court is referred as Shariah court. In terms of the Malaysian legal system as a whole, Shariah plays a relatively little role in defining the country's law. It is exclusively applicable to Muslims. In terms of civil law, the Shariah courts have jurisdiction over personal law issues such as marriage, inheritance, and apostasy. So that's all from me. Thank you.
So I will talk about fundamental liberties. Human beings have fundamental liberties which are rights and freedom. The Constitution established some essential liberties. These rights and liberties are said to be guaranteed since they are stated in the Constitution and cannot be taken away from us unless the Constitution expressly permits it. The Malaysian Constitution provision on fundamental liberties, Article 5 to 13, represent a growing post-war concern about basic civil and political safeguards in newly independent countries, which affected the constitution-making process significantly. The 1957 Federation of Malaya, which is now Malaysia, Constitution contains a lengthy section on fundamental liberties. It contains extensive provision on the rule of law and its enforcement, which is personal liberty, slavery and forced labor protection, equality of citizenship, freedom of movement, speech, assembly and association, freedom of religion, and rights to education and private property. Here are the list of some of the list of fundamental liberty taken from the Commissioner of Law Revision under the authority of the Revision of Law Act 1968. So the first one is liberty of the person. So which means no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty save in accordance with law. Where complaint is made to a high court or any judge thereof that a person is been unlawfully detained, the court shall inquire into the complaint, and unless satisfied that detention is lawful, shall order him to be produced before the court and release him. So the second one is slavery and forced labor is prohibited. This means no person should be held in a slavery. All forms of forced labor are prohibited, but Parliament may by law provide for compulsory service for national purpose. And the last one is protection against retrospective criminal law and repeated trials, which means no person shall be punished for an act or omission which was not punishable by law when it was done or made, and no person shall suffer greater punishment for an offence than was prescribed by law at the time it was committed. That's all from me. Thank you.
Every human being needs guidance and direction to carry out his or her daily duties. The same goes for humans living in a large group. Therefore, there is a necessity for certain laws to be followed by the community in order to ensure the stability of a nation and the protection of the rights of the citizens. Hence, the existence of a constitution is vital in ensuring the continued peace and prosperity of a nation. Okay, so let's get to know what is a constitution. A constitution consists of basic principles that determine how a country is established and governed as enshrined by laws, customs or rules generally accepted. The mentioned constitution is related to how public decisions are made and how power is distributed among government agencies, either at the central government or local government. The constitution also set limits of the government's authority and ways of choosing and electing a government. The constitution establishes the federation as a constitutional monarchy having the Yang di-Pertuan Agong as the head of state whose roles are largely ceremonial. It provides for the establishment and the organization of three main branches of the government. The first one is the legislative branch called the Parliament, which consists of the House Representative and the Senate. The second one is the executive branch led by the Prime Minister and his cabinet ministers. And the last one is the judicial branch headed by the Federal Court. Next is Islam is the religion of the Federation, but other religions may be practiced in peace and harmony in any part of the Federation. The word federal comes from the Latin federis, meaning league. It implies an alliance of various units and people of state. There is a vision of governmental powers between the national government and the constituent units. Malaysia operates a federal structure of government which consists of two sets of government, the federal government and state government. There is a distribution of legislative power between the federal and state government. It is stated in the 9th schedule of the Federal Constitution under Federal List and State List.
Parliament is the legislature of the federal government that approves and amends federal laws, examines government policies, and approves new government budgets and tax proposals. During the conference, appointed senators endorse Dewan Undangan Negeri. Members will propose any improvements to ensure the well-being of the community. Then a discussion will be held to determine whether the proposal is accepted or rejected. All 222 Dewan Rakyat representatives involved are elected through elections Pilihan Raya held every 5 years at their own area. For the members of the Senate, Dewan Negeri, which is senator appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, every proposal that is the need of the people will be given priority according to the budget allocated later. As we know, Parliament is responsible for approving, amending, and repealing laws. In addition, Parliament is subject to the head of state, Yang di-Pertuan Agong, based on Article 39 of the Constitution. Parliament will be dissolved by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong on the advice of the Prime Minister. Then, Parliament also held from Monday to Thursday due to several states in Malaysia being on holiday on Friday, so no conference was held on that day. The Council Conference is a one-day meeting that starts at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and resumes at 2:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Before Malaysia's independence, the Federal Legislative Council served as the constitutional legislature until 1959. Then, the first general election after independence was held. The first Malayan Parliament was formed on 11 September 1959 at Dewan Tunku Abdul Rahman, Jalan Ampang, which is now known as Pusat Malaysia Tourism or MATIC. The first Parliament began sitting at the headquarters building of the Federated Malay States Volunteer Force on a hill near Jalan Tun Ismail Maxwell Road. In 1962, the construction of a parliament building consisting of a special 3-story main building for parliamentary conferences. The parliament building was inaugurated on 2 November 1963. In addition, there is an 18-story building dedicated to the office of ministers and MPs, both councils moved there.
So that's all from us. Thank you.